Hey everyone, Mark DeYmaz, founding pastor of the Mosaic Church of Central Arkansas, co-founder of the Mosaic's Global Network, and here today with my Exponential hat on, the Multiethnic Church Next Director for Exponential Next, talking with good friends and practitioners, credible folks about community engagement. How does the multi-ethnic church advance its cause? It's not about getting a bunch of diverse people in the room and singing Kumbaya. It's about turning the unique power and presence of Christ that dwells in the midst of unity and diversity outward to bless the city, to advance the kingdom, and to engage people at the bridge of Christ's humanity, all for the sake of the gospel. And so today I'm with Rodrigo, Cruz, Tommy Kyllonen, Melissa Mixon. Melissa, let's start with you. Take a moment, if you would, and introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Sure. I'm Melissa Mixon, international nonprofit founder in Costa Rica that work to bring people from poverty to empowerment through economics. And I'm currently in Denver doing the same, taking them from homelessness to home ownership.
Yeah, and it's a tremendous work with our good friend Jason Jans and the folks at Providence Bible and CrossPurpose. We're going to hear about that as well today. Tommy, what about you?
Hey guys, I'm Tommy Urban D. Kyllonen from Crossover Church down in Tampa, Florida. Lead a multi-ethnic, multi-generational, multi-class church. Also, we lead a conference called Flavor Fest. It's an urban leadership conference and music festival that we've been doing for 2.5 decades. We just celebrated that, and we've poured into over 7,000 urban leaders during that time frame. Church leaders, artists, entrepreneurs, and done a lot of stuff with you, Mark. So it's good to be with you, man.
Yeah, likewise. I've been to that conference, been to your church, the real deal, as all of these folks are today. And Tommy, you were working way back when nobody knew who Lecrae was, and you were way back there in Tampa with the conference and all that you've done there in Tampa. So glad to have you today. And Rodrigo Cruz, I know you planted the Net Church. I think it was 2013. I got the chance to be a part of that in coaching and come alongside you. Rodrigo, tell us about you.
Yes, I appreciate it, Mark. Certainly, indeed, right. The Net is what it is because of your influence through all those years. Rodrigo Cruz, founding pastor of the Net Church, a multi-ethnic, multi-site church in the Atlanta suburbs, a church that believes doing life with people, and that has led us to open a homeless shelter for women and children, the first one in our community, as well as missional hubs all around the city, walking with people financially, socially, emotionally, and obviously spiritually.
Yeah, and now you're, of course, you're with the United Methodist Church, but now you're the assistant to the bishop in the North Georgia Conference for the United Methodist Church, right? Tell us quickly about that journey, the transition from planting and leading a multi-ethnic church to now what you're doing to try to scale that throughout the conference.
Yeah, well, I'll say, right, I mean, the hope for the gospel, and you can say this, Mark, but it's in the local church, right? That's where the magic happens, that's where transformation happens, that's where really you see that blessing. But now, I mean, in this role, right, that the possibilities is be able to influence 1,000 pastors all across the state of Georgia, and hopefully for them to be able to do that, right? To maximize what we believe is a right theology of changing people's lives through Jesus. So it is taking all the practice from the local church and I try to, bring it from the top. So it's an interesting journey. We'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, well, again, credible folks here today with us talking about community engagement from the platform, the strength of a multi-ethnic church. And Tommy, you've been doing it a long time. Let's start with you. Talk about briefly your church, the unity, the diversity, the culture you've been able to build, and how once that was built, or as you were building that, how, in a sense, in an organic way, it just flowed out to care for the community in compassion, empathetic ways.
Yeah, well, we started organically being multi-ethnic, I'm from Philly, my wife's from New York City. We grew up in super diverse multi-ethnic environments, grew up in hip hop culture. So all that was diverse. So automatically we couldn't imagine planting a church, being part of a church that wasn't diverse. So the church just automatically was that. But then when we connected with you, we began to really learn more about the theology of why this is so important, and it's biblical. And we knew some of that, but you really kind of helped open up our eyes to that. And then obviously, if you're a church that's multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and the third one, multi-class, you're going to care about people of all different classes and even the forgotten and the down and out. And so, like you said, outreach flowed out of that. And we've always been really big on doing outreach, meeting needs in the community, not just giving a handout, but giving a hand up as well. And about 8 years ago, we started a thing called Love Our City. And we actually incorporated it into a nonprofit about 7 years ago. And so we have somebody that is a full-time staff member that just does outreach stuff now. And it's really developed into something amazing. We're doing outreach multiple times a week. We're doing things in the community with all kinds of different demographics and people groups. And so it just keeps getting better and better as we're building partnerships and, also discovering some funding and all those different things that can help our reach grow even farther.
Yeah, that's the fruit of long obedience in the same direction. And you've been doing it, and you've been at it quite a long time to see that continue to scale and to grow as you've just stayed at it. But, you're talking about outreach and just staying with you for a moment, Tommy. Every church, or I shouldn't say every, but a lot of churches would say they have outreach programs, that they care about their city, like they love their city. But I know all of you, it's at a totally different level coming from the multi-ethnic church, not just because the church is multi-ethnic, but because of the compassion, the relationships, cross-cultural, the competence, the intelligence that's developed in a multi-ethnic environment. And turning that outward is very different than a lot of folks would otherwise hear or think about outreach. Talk about that and the unique difference that from seeing churches that maybe don't have that diversity versus what you're actually able to accomplish through your diversity.
Yeah, that's good, Mark. When people come to one of our outreaches or they're being served by us, they're being served by some people that look like them. Not all of them, but there's definitely several people on that team or at the church if they're actually coming to our facility. We host some of the outreaches at the facility, and they're going to see people that look just like them. So if your church is not diverse and you're reaching out to the community, you're going to be reaching people that are different than you. They're going to come and they're going to see a homogeneous church where nobody looks like them. And it can almost be like, this thing of like, hey, these people are trying to save us, and if your church is like that, you can, whether you realize it or not, can take on that complex of like, we're saving these people. But when you have a diverse group of people and you're serving the community and they see people that look like them, automatically it takes some walls down. They feel like, oh man, these people can relate to me. This is a safe space. I can connect here. And as a result of that, we've had multiple people, even this year, I can think of several people that came to some of our outreaches, and then now they're part of our church family. They might have came to, get sneakers for their kids. We stopped doing backpacks a couple of years ago because everybody in our city started doing backpacks, and that's great. But we're like, man, it doesn't have the same impact. And families, there's other needs as well. And so, if you don't know me, I am, you don't see my shoes right now, but I'm a sneakerhead. And I actually wrote a book a few years ago called Gotta Be the Shoes, where sneaker culture meets faith. So I'm like, I'm the sneaker pastor. We're the sneaker church. Like, let's give away a free pair of Nikes, to all these kids for going back to school. And let me tell you something, Mark, the kids get way, way more excited about a brand new pair of Nikes than they do a backpack. And so we've been doing that the last 2 years, and we have several families that are part of the church now because they came to one of the sneaker giveaways. We have families that have, part of the church because they came to a turkey giveaway or to, we do a free Amazon store once a month. We get a whole tractor trailer full of Amazon boxes, and families get to come and shop, and they get to pick out 3 boxes. And I mean, there's good stuff in there. Some of those items are worth literally hundreds of dollars. And so there's just so many cool stories that have come out of that. But again, going back to your initial, point you were making, is that when they come to our space, when they're being greeted by our people, they see people that look like them, and they feel like, oh, I could be part of this community. This could be my church. This could be my tribe.
Yeah, that deeper connection with people who look like you, it disarms. It creates automatic or instant trust at a different level than when you're working cross-culturally. A couple of years ago, Barna did some research that showed most people in America today have a favorable view of Jesus, but they don't trust Christians or the church. And when I hear about what you're doing, I'm thinking about the terminology they use, which is engaging people at the bridge of Christ's humanity. In the 20th century, we engage people at the bridge of Christ's divinity, but in the 21st century, we need to back up and engage them at the bridge of Christ's humanity, meeting empathetic needs, connecting like you're talking about. Melissa, man, I don't know if churches around the country are doing it better than CrossPurpose and the folks at Providence, but when you think about this terminology of engaging people at the bridge of Christ's humanity, that's where you're living and working every day. Talk to us about what you're doing and the transferable truths you're learning that you can pass on to pastors and planners here trying to develop multi-ethnic ministry that is focused on its community.
Yeah, absolutely. Transformation is so downstream from so many things that the culture of your organization or church is creating. To your point, Tommy, about the homogeneous church versus a very diverse group. And, I believe deeply that meeting physical needs first opens the door to meeting those spiritual needs. And so how do you meet physical needs? You have to understand them. What are the needs of this diverse community? I may not fully understand that. Depending on which community you're in, there's a group of people who won't understand what those needs are, for sure, someplace. And so what I believe has been a very key factor, and one that CrossPurpose does well, and when I was in Costa Rica, CrossPurpose sat in the community for a very extended time, learning what are these needs, becoming part of that community. I moved abroad for 10 years, sat for 3 before I made a move to see what needs do they actually have, and how can I, as an agent and ambassador of Christ, activate the community to take that. And, I think we all bring different skills to the table, but the community is full of very capable people who can meet the needs of their own community. What is it I am here to do? Being in the church and being in the community, it was generating momentum in speaking truth and empowering people to really go and meet the needs of their own people. And we've seen, as I mentioned, we sat 3 years in Costa Rica before we ever founded anything, because there are so many needs and so many organizations doing all of the things. What is the one that I am called to push forward and really spearhead? And so those needs are going to be different in every community. And to your point, it's not always a backpack that they need. And so what are those physical needs? But the spiritual needs, then they're open to receive from really anyone. But those physical needs, someone who understands their story, has been in their shoes, has walked that journey, and also left. And, in Denver, we've had met 180. We have over 1,800 alumni from our programming, but 180 have committed to the longer term journey of saying, hey, I want to see my family really leave poverty and pursue home ownership, or leave a legacy of sorts to my family. I want to see a very big change. I'm going to do whatever it takes. That person is able to turn around and then say to the person in their community, you can do it too, because I've done it. And there's just an element of power that is there that I could never bring. I don't have that. So working together, I think the body of Christ, that unity comes from, I'm here to encourage, help you, walk with you across time, all the way, whatever all the way is for that person. And then I am just creating that discipleship, creating as an agent of change that discipleship process through whatever it is, through home ownership or through financial independence, or maybe just getting an education, or whatever that looks like for their family. But that transformation starts so much more upstream of what am I committed to do myself and walk through long term with someone so that I can see that change happen in the community. It just takes a commitment. It takes a willingness to say, I know change won't happen overnight, but I'm willing to stay here until it is. God, I feel called to this and I'm in it. And I think that's the CrossPurpose. The founders moved from they committed 30 years to Denver, and they are still, I think they're at a 20-ish year mark, a little over. And this is now what we have, a 112 person organization who have seen 1,800 people leave poverty, all because they said, I'm willing to dig in, get in the community, see what the needs are, and then activate the community itself to serve their own people. And I think there is just an element of beauty in how we all work together in that process.
Yeah, it sounds very much like Jesus, doesn't it? Right? I mean, if you think about it, he became incarnational amongst the Jews. He lived, he sat with them, he absorbed and understood their needs, and then slowly began to make disciples and draw them to himself. And all along, while they're preaching with words, they are doing the work. They are feeding, they are healing, they are coming alongside in their culture and casting out demons. And that's what you're doing. I think about this as a Matthew 5:16 century. And in the 20th century, words worked just fine. But in the 21st century, Matthew 5:16, Jesus didn't say, let them hear your good words. He said, let them see your good works. And this is what will shine a light. It will glorify your Father in heaven. It shines a light through these good works of meeting people and engaging them at the bridge of Christ's humanity. And again, from the unity and the diversity perspective, that multi-ethnic, the depth of that, the credibility of that, the trust that's built, it's at a whole different level. And I know, Rodrigo, you not only believe that, you have done that, you've done the work, you're still doing that work, but talk to us about the days of the net, because for you, it wasn't just about developing or planting, growing a multi-ethnic church. You wanted to impact your community. Talk to us about how you did that.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. For all of us who have, read or tried to learn from, let's say the first multi-ethnic church, right? A church in Antioch in the book of Acts. One of the things that we don't talk a lot about it, but is one of the great insights, is not just the diversity of the team, but it's actually probably one of the first examples when we see the church leaving the building and going to the marketplace, right? Leaving the building and going to the households, leaving the building and going where people were, right? So, for us, 13 years ago, when we started this idea, hey, can we create a church that can reflect heaven on earth, right? Within the boundaries of the state of Georgia, it was very quickly, well, it's going to be a church that is not going to be attractional, right? It's not going to be a church that's going to ask people, hey, come and see, but actually, can we go and see where you are? How do you shift, right, from outreach or right mission, just being a part of what you do as a church, right, as a program, versus, we bleed that. And what would that look like for a church that financially reflects that, right? Versus, when in most churches, outreach is just 5% of your budget or 10% of your budget with your time commitment, right? One of the first things that we started doing from the beginning, right, was, hey, we're going to use our biggest platform, number one platform, Sundays, right, to go and do life with people. And we started doing that when we were a homeless church. The last Sunday of the month, we will not have corporate worship like we do it. We're going to go and just meet people where they are. 10 years later, right, we every fourth Sunday of the month, right, we close the doors of every campus and we deploy people to the streets. We find where people are and make sure, right, we meet them where they are. We try to follow Acts 1:8 as our compass, right? Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the end of the world, right? So we look at, okay, where is our Jerusalem, right? What is the zip code? The zip codes, in this case, that God is calling us to be part with, right? Judea, our, greater geographical area. Samaria, those people in our communities, right, that are the margins, right? Anywhere from victims of sex trafficking, adults, children at risk, and the end of the world. One of the things that I have seen in multiple churches, that I have even been part of those, is that sometimes it's comfortable to just write a check, right, to impact, something that is across the ocean, and then you just become blind to what is happening in your communities. Or sometimes, right, you're just so consumed for what is happening in your streets that you ignore the fact that you're part, right, of the whole world. So trying to follow that approach, right, it holds us accountable that, hey, what's happening in our streets and what's happening, all the way to the ends of the earth. And we let our budget reflect that, right? We let our budget, we're going to put the same amount of money in meeting people where they are as the same amount of money that we're putting it in our worship experiences on Sundays. We're going to put the same amount of time, right, in serving people where they are. What are their needs? What are their assets as well, right? I think I appreciate what you said, Melissa, right? We don't have to be the saviors of this community. God has equipped individuals and families from all kinds of colors and classes to be able to help each other, right, live an abundant life. So how do we maximize that? How do we look into their assets so they can actually be, right, a blessing for each other? And that has led us to learn that, also it's not about the church being the hero, right? This is not about a hero ball sport. There's plenty of organizations that have the same mission better people's lives. In some ways, I mean, the government, right? I mean, with the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? They try to do it. So what it looks like for us as a church, right? Bring the public sector, the private sector, the faith sector, and have conversations, kind of like that parable of that story, right? Of the fishes and the loaves. Hey, this is what I can bring. I can put a building. Then the government say, okay, I can put up the permits, and then a nonprofit say, like, I'll put the money, and all of a sudden, right? I mean, after 50 years, there's the first homeless shelter, right? And it's a collaborative work, right? Everybody can do something in it. So yeah, Mark, that's kind of what we believe, right? This is all hands on deck, reaching people to their spiritual needs, to their financial needs, to their emotional needs. It's not a solo sport, right? And the church has the credibility to bring all those people to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that multi-ethnic church does that because we've talked about the multi-ethnic nature, multicultural, the multi-class, Tommy, as you call it, economic diversity. But with that comes political diversity and different demographic diversity. If you're in a homogeneous church, I don't know, you have 2,000 people, but they largely come from the same class. They live in the same neighborhoods. Their kids go to the same schools, attend the same social function, run in the same social circles, and work in the same industries. So yes, it's a lot of bodies, but when in a city, particularly today in a globalized society, when that gets out, 2,000 people that are all the same, they on a Sunday morning, it's just into one or two slices of the pie, but you can have 100 people, 150 people. It doesn't have to be much, but with that diversity, when your folks get out, they go into all these sectors and they know people. And what you're hearing from Rodrigo, what I hear is the ability to bring diverse people, not just diverse people, but diverse partnerships, the nonprofit, government, et cetera. There's so much credibility in that because of the connections that these diverse people that walk, work, and worship God together as one in your church, they have those. And Melissa, talk to us about how you've been able to gather the different entities that are required to actually get the work done and engage the community well.
Yeah, man, we have so many parties that come together to do this work. To your point, you're correct, Rodrigo. There's no way we could do what we do without everyone. I mean, even in home ownership, what community organizations exist? What down payment assistance programs exist? Some of those are very secular. We have, we call them allies. So partners in the community, people who want to volunteer and just sit with our participants in programs as they go through the program. That's an entity of just volunteering. And that is every walk of life. People who have lots of time because there's, have that in their life that they're able to do that. Government for grants to make some of these programs even functional, to be able to meet the needs of our neighbors. We need to partner in so many ways, whether that's through SNAP or, getting them to the table. Again, meeting that physical need, open. Wow, you've helped me pay my rent this month. You put food on my table this month. They're very open to hear anything else you have to say when those physical needs have been met. We have so many donors, and this is every walk of life. Very much every class that exists is at the table. Some of our allies are people who have been in the program. Some of our donors are people who have completed our program. And that is a metric we measure and a require for graduation, is that you give back in some way, whether that is you volunteer or you donate or whatever, or even in your community. But what I can say is how transformational that is to the community as a whole. We sit in grant meetings with the government talking about the SNAP grant and how we're meeting the needs of the neighbor, and their minds blown at how it's so much more than a small portion of their income for a month. They're seeing how we're doing this whole other thing here, and they're coming back to the table saying, you've challenged the way I think about humanity in my own community. And it's not even intentional. It's like, we need you to give us the money to help us do this. And it's just this mutually beneficial, and from a human to human interaction, seeing donors come to the table and they all look the same. And we probably know what I mean when I say that. And their lives are being transformed when they walk with Tommy through his home ownership journey, and they hear that he was an addict and now he's got, a home that he rents out the basement. He's actually cash flowing his home, and he's got a plan, and he's starting a business, and he's got 2 little girls that he just got full custody of. And he went from addict, homeless, to now a homeowner and cash flowing it all, like to a wealthy businessman. They're like, what is happening? And Tommy's heart is changed. I'm using Tommy as your name. I'm making it up, but that was a make-believe person. but his heart and his life is a light and a transformative role that he serves in his community that is not actually in Denver. It's actually outside of Denver in a community I don't have access to people I don't interact with. And so there's these transformational relationships. The donors are just willing to give because they see, wow, lives actually are being changed. And now their own lives are being challenged and changed. And it's such a beautiful, churches are getting involved. They want, to see CrossPurpose or something like it in their own communities, and it's spurring curiosity and innovation and disruption in communities that maybe didn't ever think like this prior. And so hopefully it's an exponential sort of growth to see this in communities too, but it brings the whole community together, it takes the whole community, and it's mutually beneficial and transformational to all involved.
Yeah, and you brought up the word disruption. That's a business term from 1996, Harvard Business School, the late Clayton Christensen, talking about disruption. And essentially, if you keep trying to think and act and do what you've always done or what others have done, you're just managing decline and don't know it, right? You're managing stagnation, managing decline. You have to reinvent at the top of an S-curve, which very few organizations and people are willing to do. But if you're a pastor or church planter trying to build a healthy multi-ethnic church and want to engage the community, I want you to know this. You can't rattle off what Melissa just did. I don't know if you're paying attention, but the words she used, the depth and the credibility of those words, all the way to the stories, that's what everyone says they want, but they can't talk like she did because they actually haven't stayed the course, worked across platforms. And Tommy, that's what I want to talk to you about, because you do the same thing. Think about what Melissa was just saying, and we're talking about disruption and changing the way people think. Pastors, if I get involved with the government, what does that mean? I'm going to get a grant and they're going to tell me I can't preach the gospel. Or they start from a place of fear often, and that's why you can't develop this broader disruptive thinking, because you're starting from a place of fear, but we're supposed to be people of faith. And there's ways to understand it, to navigate that. I know you're doing a great job at that. Talk to pastors and planners right now that may hear this, but don't know how to process it in a disruptive way and are fearful perhaps of what their congregation would say, or to protect the gospel. They can't get involved with government or nonprofits. How do you navigate all of that?
Yeah, I just want to remind you, if you're listening to this and you're a church leader, church planter, there's power in partnership. You can't do everything on your own. So of course we got the Holy Spirit, we got God working with us, right? But there's so many problems and situations happening in our cities. It's complex. One church can't solve it all. One nonprofit can't do it. One government agency can't do it. We got to partner with each other. And so we try to find the things that we have in common, right? We might not agree with everything that they do. We're not going to send somebody to a program that they're teaching, the wrong kind of stuff, so you got to navigate that. But there is just a lot of neutral stuff. We don't have to be so afraid all the time. I think maybe in some places you might need to be more cautious than others, but you got to know your city, you got to know the people. And as you build relationships and as you also build a reputation, then those other organizations, even those government agencies, those leaders in the city, business leaders, government leaders will begin to trust you because they see the work that you're doing. And that's really our story. We were just doing a lot of it on our own, on a smaller scale. We moved into this building that we're in now. It's a former retail box. It's an old Toys R Us store. So we came and retrofitted it. It was in the heart of the urban community where a lot of businesses were fleeing to the suburbs or just closing down. During the recession is when we got the sweetheart deal on our building. And now the area, the whole city is booming and just redeveloping. And so, but because we were immediately doing work and we even just took the risk to take that building, suddenly I was at this meeting with another big nonprofit in our city called Metropolitan Ministries. They do great work. Metropolitan Ministries is a great partner we have. Another one is called Feeding Tampa Bay. A lot of cities have a Feeding America. It's a Feeding America, but it's called Feeding Tampa Bay. And we're able to get groceries at pennies on the dollar from them that we have to give to families and for our outreach events, for our food pantry. And there's many times they give a bunch of stuff away for free. Sometimes sharing the gospel is simply through actions, and it's planting seeds and it's building relationships. And like you said, Melissa, it's building that trust, and serving them tears the walls down, If you just try to give them a gospel tract and preach at them, a lot of times the walls are up. But if you give them a bottle of water and a bag of groceries and you ask them how they're doing, suddenly the walls come down and the narrative begins to change about the church. Like, oh, the church is just out to take, or the church is out to scam. There's a big video that came out that's going viral the last week or two by a YouTuber named Drewski. And he's imitating all this stuff that happens in mega churches. And it's bad. I mean, it's exaggerated. Some of it's funny, but it's not a great look for the church. But the narrative that a lot of people have of the church is that because there has been a lot of foolishness that's happened in some churches. And so we've got to change the narrative. We got to rebrand the church. And I think by serving our neighbors, loving them, giving them a hand up, mentoring them, helping them become homeowners, that changes the game. Even people that say, I don't even believe in God, or I don't believe in Jesus or Christianity, they can look at this kind of stuff and say, man, I may not believe what they believe, but wow, they're making a difference in the community, and I got to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think about the men of Issachar understood the times and knew what was right for Israel to do. And when I'm listening to you, you're explaining the times and how our methods have to adjust. And we don't, the message doesn't adjust, our methods adjust in a variety of ways. Our mindset adjusts for the times in which we live. And that's the disruptive innovation. That's the people of faith, not fear, who lean forward into these challenges and think differently in order to meet them and represent Christ well at the bridge of Christ's humanity. You talked about common ground, right? And the partnership aspect. We don't have to agree about everything, but here it's about feeding and how we benefit as a church because we're meeting empathetic needs, how the nonprofit benefits because they're coming alongside fulfilling their mission. We don't have to agree on everything, but we find that common cause, if you will. Melissa, you mentioned it about CrossPurpose. Rodrigo, you've done it. You said it like this, Tommy: no one church is going to change its city. And, I know a lot of church, they'll say, oh, we love our city. But the question is, does your city love you? Does your city love the church? And that's the real question to talk about. And so here's my point. So many pastors say, we're going to take this city for Christ. I've been in ministry 43 years. I've never seen it happen. It's rhetoric. It's not results. You have to focus on a specific community. It could be an apartment complex, if that's your capacity and scale, or it could extrapolate to a zip code. And Rodrigo, that's where I want to go with you, because I know that that's what you've done in the Net Church. You didn't just you focused on a specific area that you felt you had capacity to meet. It wasn't a grandiose vision to change the city, but it was a specific area that you poured your time, your attention, your resources in. Talk to pastors and planners about this concept, the grandiose. We're going to change the city. No, you're not. What is your micro area, and focus on it? How do you determine that, and why is that important?
Yeah, Mark, and language matters, right? I mean, vision matters, right? When you, especially as a church planter, right? People, okay, I'm going to build a church. I mean, the goal is never to build a church. I mean, the goal is to build people. Right? I mean, you invest people. The goal is to build neighborhoods that are self-sustainable, that are healthy, right? Where people are doing life with each other. The churches help, the educational system. You build people's lives in a way that they can live abundantly, right? John 10:10. And people will build a church, right? I mean, the church will take care by itself, right? When you're investing in people's lives. This idea that, okay, God is still in the business of restoring communities, right? God is still in the business, right? To meeting people right where they are with a message that can change their lives. And we cannot do that if we don't have an ear in the ground, right? If we don't know what are the needs of the community, if we don't need, what's happening in people. I mean, one of the stories that I like to share often from the church, right, was in our first years, right before COVID in our city, right? We went to a huge shortage of toilet paper, right? Everybody was freaking out because of toilet paper. So I mean, the churches, the people in the community, right? They didn't need it, right? Another Bible story. They didn't really need it, even food. They needed toilet paper, right? So we figured out a way as a church, right, to go and gather thousands and thousands of toilet paper, individually wrap it, and then go and take them away to the communities, right? And we actually put stickers in all those toilet papers, and we just simply say this: hey, receive this roll of toilet paper like God's grace, freely given. And they said, we believe in the power of church. And then we said, we encourage you to go to the church of your choice, right? Because it wasn't at that point about building the Net Church, right? It's about help them experience God's love and help them experience that, hey, there's people that care about you, not because we want you to come and help us build our church, because biblically we believe that God cares about you, right? So we're just gonna do that. I love, Tommy, how you talk about, right? I mean, we just have to find a way also to be creative. We cannot continue to try to operate as a church, right? In 2026, right? Gosh, I mean, if I were to start another church right now, it probably would be very different than when we started the net 10 years ago, right? And many different every 10 years. But the core principle is there, right? It is a Christ that wants to continue to transform lives. There is brokenness, right? And chaos and sin and evil and brokenness keep taking many different forms and shapes, right, throughout the years, right? And there is a group of people called the church that we have to find a way to connect both things in a credible way, right? And it's not about, hey, come and see what we are, come and see how cool we do, right? I mean, how awesome our music is, and you know, we can do it in multiple languages or whatever that may be. It's about, hey, we're going to care about where you are, right? We want to make sure that your marriage is healthy. We want to make sure that you can connect with your teenagers. We want to make sure that your kids find a way to stay on the path of graduating from middle school, high school, and pursue whatever it is. So it's okay. What are the strengths that we have? What are the needs that people have? And most important is, are we willing to make that as our priority, right? That is not about people coming to us, it's about people in the seats and benchmarks that maybe some denominations or some non-denominations people will have, but it's about, hey, influencing people's life, impacting communities, and then let God take care of the rest. And that has been the most encouraging thing for us, right? That it has never been about building a church, it's been about building people, and then the people having take care of the church. And the last piece that I'll say is, the beauty of the partner between, right, the government and nonprofits and people that care for others, then also creates a beautiful partnership between ecumenical groups, right? I mean, gosh, we partner with Mormons, we partner with Muslims, we partner, right, with atheist organizations that in our unique ways, we all want to influence people's lives. And then, yes, right, then there's obviously some core things about the gospel that direct us, right, and that we want to make sure we translate, but it also, right, enable us to partner, right, hand to hand in building a house, right, or staying up night, right, when you open the buildings with people, get them out of freezing temperatures, with people that, they profess, an atheist status, right, or they, do not worship the same God that you do. We say like, hey, we want to love little children, right? We don't believe, right? We believe our foster system is broken, so we all can do something. So it is amazing to see how God can use the church, right? When the church is willing to not work and not be consumed for the church.
Melissa, our good friend, Dr. John Perkins, years ago told me it's not about giving a person a fish or even teaching a person how to fish. And you heard that metaphor many times, right? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But he said the step beyond that is you want to help people own the pond. You want to help people own the pond. Get beyond just giving a fish or teaching. Yes, that's good, but ultimately to help people own the pond. In terms of that metaphor, that's exactly what you're doing at Providence Bible, at CrossPurpose. You're helping people own the pond. Talk about how that plays into the overall capital G gospel advance from the social game, that defense that you're playing there at CrossPurpose.
Yeah. I think some, stability in your own life makes you feel like you actually have something to give. I think we all could probably look at our own lives historically and say there's probably been a moment where we needed our own hand up, whatever that looked like. And in that moment, we didn't feel like we were there to help someone else. Like in that moment, it was, a little bit of an emergency. All I can see is what's in front of me. And that is what I would say nationally, anyone living in a state of emergency in their own life is feeling. And I think when we look at the gospel, it's such a redemptive story of saying, yes, you're in a crisis, but there's a way out. And so they just need a little bit of help to see the forest for the trees. And so I think CrossPurpose as a whole, they do that. They say, hey, let me stop you in your tracks and say, I see you. Not only do I see you, I hear you. And I shared this before, but when you think of the Gate of Beautiful, that the beggar at the gate was there his whole life asking for money. It clearly didn't change his life. Otherwise, he wouldn't be there every day. And when Peter and Paul stopped, and John, they stop and they see him. They actually say, I see you. Look at me in my eyes. They see his need, and they're like, I don't have the stuff that you're always asking for, but what I do have, what is the gift that the church has to give? What is the gift your church has to give in that moment? And there's this very interesting, unique part of that story that talks about his ankle bones healing. And I'm always like, why are they talking about this in the Bible? That's so strange. And I believe it's because for a minute, the church is doing the heavy lifting. For a minute, it is a lot of work. For a minute, it is exhausting. But what the glory of that story and the redemptive edge behind that story is that man gets up on his feet, jumps around. If you look a few chapters later, the whole community comes back. I think it's like 5,000 people come back to hear the gospel. It's because it's the long game. It's going with someone all the way and saying, you know what, it might take a little bit of effort, but the Bible says, Galatians 2:20, I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. As a church, as an organization, there's a lot of things we want to do. They're like, I'm really good at this thing. I want to do this thing. But what is the need in your community right now? And who are the people on your different teams? Like maybe your gift is preaching, but right now we don't need that gift. So can you take that back seat? Can you no longer live, but does Christ live in you, to say, who are the people that I'm seeing in this moment? What is necessary to see an entire community transformed by the work of just meeting a need? What is that one need? Let's meet it. Let's see those ankle bones heal. And yes, it might be hard. And yeah, it might be exhausting for volunteers to sit in a parking lot for 3 months, 4 months. But I know that there is a redemptive call beyond this, that God is going to show up and transform, and I'm committed to it long term. And I think that's sometimes also a challenge. We want that need to be met, and we want to have the glory now, and we want to see it. And I think if we look at church history, sometimes we don't see that need met. For decades, you may not live to see that need met, but we know whatever that ankle bone healing time frame may be, it's the Lord's. And if we are called to meet it, and we're called to stop and see it, his glory will be revealed in time, and that community will be transformed by a work you began, you started, you invested in, the people you brought together to meet it. And so I think what CrossPurpose is doing is saying, hey, we want to get them out of this crisis where they see that. We want to get them to a place where they're not only having their need met, they have an abundance to now meet needs around them. But it's going to take a long work of saying, I'm here to get in the weeds and do the heavy lifting, commit to the long-term work so that is seen and revealed and realized in this community. And I believe that is where that gospel kind of takes full circle, is now they're telling their friends and their family, and they're not repeating patterns in their own family of addiction or of poverty or whatever. They now have a whole new language they use at home, and their family has been changed, all because the church said, I'm going to stop at the Gate of Beautiful. I see you, look at me, and I see your need. We are here. It's a very simple task. It's just your comfort zone, when it meets that requirement of disruption, is going to be challenged. And you have to say, I'm here for it. That is why I exist. And I have a passion to see the gospel revealed and realized in people's lives. And so I think that's where CrossPurpose says we're in it.
There's so much wisdom and depth in what Melissa was just talking about. Let me just focus on this one aspect, because you see the beggar, that could be an individual. Mark DeYmaz, I'm on the street, I'm walking around my community, my neighborhood, and I see someone, I stop, I get involved. But there's also that collective aspect, right? The church stops and sees. And that's where we get back to the specific focus of a community. You're not going to change the city, but what is the capacity you have? I know Jason Jans, you guys, Melissa at CrossPurpose Providence, they started focused on a single neighborhood, one neighborhood. And the one neighborhood, as they got their hands and feet around that neighborhood, got to know the neighborhood, the people, they began to learn not only about the needs of the community, but about themselves. What can we bring? Just like I have unique gifting. What is our unique gifting? And they brought that and that passion to a single neighborhood. And then all of a sudden that was 2 neighborhoods or 3 or 4, and it scaled from there. And over 20 years now, its impacting has gone way beyond those neighborhoods, way beyond a zip code. It's literally having impact and continuing to scale throughout the city. The Net Church, hey, we can't change all of Atlanta, but we're going to focus on inside the perimeter. And Tommy, I know you've done that right in your own neighborhood, in the entrepreneurial work that you're doing there. We do it in a zip code. We started everything we know about community engagement. We started in a trailer park. So the point is, you're not going to change the city, Pastor, but you can change an apartment complex. You can change a trailer park, maybe to a zip code. And in time, if you stay and play the long game, like Melissa's saying, yes, have impact throughout your city because of the uniqueness of the power and the beauty of unity and diversity turned outward, ultimately carry the gospel forward. Hey, we're moving towards a time to about finish up. And before we do, I want to give each of you a chance to look the camera in the eye, so to speak, the pastors and planters listening, and give them one hot tip, one take that you would suggest. How do you engage, get beyond rhetoric to results in terms of community engagement? And I'm going to give you all a chance to do that right now. So Tommy, let's start with you. What's that one hot take you're going to talk to a pastor about? How can they get beyond rhetoric and aspirational desires to real results for the glory of God?
Yeah, so we've been talking about a lot of outreach stuff, and outreach is not just giving stuff away, because many times churches don't do enough of that. But when we do that, outreach, it's only that. I challenge you to even go beyond that and look at some other ways you can reach other demographics as well. And so for us, the last couple of years, we've really began to focus on entrepreneurs in addition to all the other stuff that we do. But we are doing like a big entrepreneur summit next month. It'll be our 4th time to do it. We'll be gathering hundreds of entrepreneurs from around the city for like a day of some general sessions with TED Talks and then some breakout workshops on all kinds of different topics, on AI, on marketing and branding, on real estate, on investing and tax strategies, on wellness, and all those different like hot button things that a lot of entrepreneurs are talking about. Because we've done that, let me share this, Mark. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this. The biggest entrepreneur movement in Central Florida right now is a group called Tampa Entrepreneurs, and it's being led by a bunch of young guys in their 20s. The CEO is like 27 years old. He moved here from Philly during the pandemic, and they gather over 1,000 people at their events every time. They've been doing it now. He became a believer recently since he moved to Florida. We built a relationship. I had him at the Entrepreneur Summit that we did last year, and they've decided to do all of their events, their TED Talk events, they call them TE Talks, at our church. We just had the first one this past Saturday. They gathered almost 400 entrepreneurs from our city. One of the original Sharks from Shark Tank was there. Some other people were there talking about the viral blueprint. So you had all these people in our building because we've done this outreach and we've partnered with people, and they're in our building for the very first time, and we're building bridges. So pastors, find ways to pour into entrepreneurs. That might just be as simple as starting with a small group. That's what we did at our church. We started with a small group, and we led on a different business book and that had biblical principles. And from there, it just continued to grow. Don't forget about the entrepreneurs. We are in a gig economy. And man, there's people in your church that need mentorship. They need coaching. They need resources. There's people in your community that need it. So it could be two things. It could be outreach and discipleship.
Rodrigo, what about you?
Probably my question would be, Pastor, if you're listening to this, what are you waiting for? Right? You're never going to have the perfect time, right? That where your system is, where your church is running in a perfect cycle that, now I have time to do this, right? You're never going to have enough volunteers, right? When you have an abundance of people that, okay, now I can, right, send some people to help. You probably will never have enough money, right? When you can say, okay, now we have extra money. So I want to bring a sense of urgency to you, right? What if this is the last time that you get to be right leading your church, right? If this is your last Sunday in the pulpit, how will that influence that, right? If this is your last time where you can command or encourage people to go and serve. So don't wait for the perfect something. Go and take a risk, right? Go and fail. And then if it fails, then start something new and give it another shot. I believe God honors those who are giving it a shot. So, don't suck at it, but go give it a try and fail. And just get a sense of urgency. You look at this world, the brokenness in so many different ways. we may never get another shot to try to do something right now.
You know, when you said, you said when we were talking, that one question, what if? So many pastors, they start with we can't. The question you should ask is what if? Not we can't, what if? That's a good question. Melissa, hey, we're going to give you the final word. You've been so great. Man, I want to bring you to preach at our church, man. You got that conviction and that heart and that passion. That's awesome. Talk to the pastors and planners listening. What's a hot take from you that you'd encourage them with?
And I think you kind of just touched it. I think it's easy to see the challenges around us and feel overwhelmed or like, wow, there are so many needs. How on earth are we supposed to know? I think it's a great opportunity, especially in a society so connected with technology, with this idea of partnership, to reframe the way we see the needs around us as an opportunity. You are always going to have, the Bible says the poor will always be with us. I think that means many things. There's always going to be needs that surround us. What an opportunity and a privilege it is to be in a moment where we can sit down, and we've hinted at it today, partnership, power and partnership. One thing we didn't mention, or way we can actually see it a different way. What an opportunity to partner with our own church members, maybe giving them a table to sit at where they can come together and voice their own ideas. There's so much creativity that is untapped in the church. There's so many people. I mean, I think about the team I work on. Sure, it's my job to cast the vision, but when I bring that team together, there is so much more creativity and wisdom that comes out of those meetings. I'm like, wow, now I even feel like more inspired to go out. And so I think I would challenge churches today to say, what are the partnerships within our own church? Where can we bring people together at a table, give them a voice, and say, what does God want to do through us? What an opportunity and a moment that we live in, and we get to do this.
Yeah, so good. You know, I wanted to say along with that pastors, you might be listening and think, how can I do this, man? It's all I can do to preach and do some other things I'm doing with the church. How am I going to do this? You don't have to do it all. You can't do it all. Not just your church, but you. So you have to determine not only who you are, but who you're not. Because if you know who you're not, you know who you need. And think about football again. No head coach in the NFL or college football is the head coach of the team and also coaches the offense, the defense, and the special teams, right? Every now and then, a head coach might coach the offense or defense, but they position people to coach those teams, people with skills, with passion, etc., and to position the players. Melissa, you're talking about the people in your church, right? Too often, we're taking entrepreneurs in our church, owners, if you will, people with high capacity, and we say, would you be a greeter at the front door, right? They'll do it, but that you just made them an employee in your company, or you say, hey, would you help me kind of organize first impressions? You run that company. I know you're good at that. They'll do it because they respect you. They respect the church, but then you've made them a manager. Folks with high capacity, they don't want to be employees. They don't want to be managers. Put them in charge of something. Turn it over to them. Who is you? If you're the spiritual pastoral type leader, think about it like this. You're the coordinator of the spiritual game, right? But then you need that defensive coordinator, the social, the nonprofit leadership, and the players. People walk in the church and they say, I have such a heart for the homeless. And then you're like, oh, that's great. We need somebody to teach in third grade children's ministry, right? No, that person needs to be on the defense, right? So it's a way of understanding who's coaching the team, who's playing the game on the financial side for the future of the church and long-term sustainability. We need to move away from a single-dimensional game to be playing a three-dimensional game in the 21st century. And again, pastor, just like our church can't do it, you can't do it. You don't have to do it. That's the good news here. But you have to know the game and staff to the game, whether through volunteers or vocational staff, and build those three teams to win, as we're talking about. Well, Tommy, Rodrigo, Melissa, thank you so much for your insight today. You all know, and Rodrigo, right back to the start, we talked about Antioch. This is biblical. It's right. It's not optional. It's biblical. It's not just nice. It is necessary. That is community engagement to meet the needs, empathetic needs of people at the Bridge of Christ Humanities we've been talking today. And all that stems from Antioch, Acts chapter 11, which is the first church to send missionaries to the world with intention. Antioch, which is the first church to take up a collection for the poor. Antioch. Why? Because when your church is healthy and multi-ethnic, economically diverse, mission isn't a program. It is who you are. It's not organized as much as it is organic, flowing from the character and the nature of the people you bring together to walk, work, and worship God together as one. So again, thanks for listening today, guys. Thanks so much for being with us. And For Exponential, if you're there at Global in 2026, we hope to see you there, some of the regional events. But get involved, check us out. And there's other podcasts to watch as well through Multiethnic Church Next. At Exponential Next, I'm Mark DeYmaz. Thanks so much for being with us.